Welcome to another garden vlog. Probably not going to be super long this time. We are definitely getting ready for these persimmons to ripen. They might just be starting to change color a little bit. Still pretty green though. Here's some of our first Suriname cherry seedlings here that we just threw out here a long time ago. And they're starting to get some size, maybe about 2 foot, but more importantly, they're getting a lot of this bushy growth here. And some of the beauty berries are starting to get a little bit of that purple color. These wild grapes here are starting to ripen. These little guys make excellent jelly because they're pretty acidic. And here we got some pokeberries, pokeweed, poke salad berries. Guys like a 4 or 5 foot shrub there. Now, just an update on that Charlie's Golden Autumn Olive that we planted here. It's a good 5.5, 6 foot tall, super shrubby, bushy, doing really well. When did we plant this, like 4 or 6 months ago? I can't remember, but I kind of wondered if it was going to do okay. And this is kind of close to the other one that is over there with other stuff. I got elderberries, there's a fig there, there's some taro or ado. There are some real yams there, 2 types if they're still alive. I think they are. There's one there and there's a different type there. They just don't get a lot of growth here in this raised bed. We got beauty berries and the dwarf everbearing mulberry, which goes up there to maybe 16, 18 foot. But the autumn olive, the original one, goes up there to the top of it too. So it kind of holds its own, I think. It's got a few limbs about 12 foot high there that don't quite look very happy, but other parts of the plant on different limbs look pretty good. I'm not sure what's happening there. Maybe that limb will die or something. But look at here. We got some more beauty berries that are pretty much ripe there. And there is a lizard blending well, really well into that elderberry there. Now we're in that back forested area, and this is where I planted 2 or 3 of those squash, and they have not grown more than an inch or 2 in the last few months. So nowhere have I planted squash this season where they actually did well. Several of them just died. So I'm not sure why I had such good luck that first year, 2 years ago or something. It had, you know, between like 25 and like 75 or so pound squash on them, and over like 1,000 feet of vine growth. But these guys definitely are not taking off at all. Another bit of sad news. That GHB avocado there that I planted and it kind of drooped and looked bad and then started regrowing at the top is now getting that black, whatever it is that starts from wherever, top, bottom, and just seems to go all the way down and kills them usually. So there's at least one there that most likely will not make it. So that makes at least, 2 avocados that we just planted dead, and at least 2 more potentially dying, which kind of sucks. Well, I definitely feel bad that I don't have more to show you guys and have more content for you guys. But mainly, we're just looking at updates, and it does suck that I have beds that I started and haven't planted them out or finished them up, and so many projects that are unfinished this season. What are you looking for? Frogs? And the little pond there? So has the spark gone within me? I would say no. We're just kind of bad weather, out of time, out of season. And we have so many other projects, plus raising kids, which is always a challenge, right? In my opinion, you know, we're always going to have losses, successes, failures, and all that stuff, but we can't really go too much lower, you know? We have a lot of things that we've planted, You know, even just on the garden blog here and even before, you know, that we planted those seeds, we planted those plants, those grafted plants, we, you know, propagated so much, we've experimented so much. We have to, we could just wait and see, and maybe everything would be just fine. Maybe we, you know, our crops, and we'd have stuff that we've never had before. Maybe we would have a lot more than we do now, and I'm not even going to say maybe, you know, just like those pears, as long as they have a pollinator, like the Orient pears that we just now, after so many years, decided to put a flowering potted pear tree right beside that plant and got 3 pears. You know, that just tells us we need a bigger pear tree that is flowering close to that tree. But we have been buying pear trees. We've been buying scion wood. We've been propagating some of the scion cuttings, taking cuttings from our own plants and doing more grafting. So it's just a matter of time. We should be full force into pears. Whether it be 3 years or 10 years down the road, we should have so many pears, unless those boring insects come back and destroy everything. Check this out. That little root sucker that I pulled from the jujube is producing flower buds there. There will be flowers soon right there. This pawpaw project, which has been so long, you know, we are getting so many more root suckers now. As those root suckers move to a place that we wouldn't mind it to be, maybe getting closer to full sun, full sun, full sun. Okay. Their production and flower making and all should go up. And the more plants you have, especially with some genetic diversity in there, and we have, what was it, 17 different genetics now? You know, covering probably about a 1,500 foot, you know, from the tip to tip, albeit not right beside each other in all cases. In that area, we have, like I said, 17 different genetics, and we are copying and, you know, backing up those genetics. So we will have, you know, probably 8 or 10 in each spot, maybe more. So when they're close together and they're bigger and they're flowering, they will hopefully help pollinate each other more. I don't know if the ones in the shade are ever going to do super good. They may not ever. But we are using those for propagation to move a little bit closer to full sun. And those root suckers moving to full sun or closer to full sun will be better production. To me, it is inevitable that the pawpaw project will have to have some much higher level of success than it does now over time. As long as I don't die and somebody comes plows this land away, you know, and gets rid of the pawpaw trees, there has to be successes. And even if we start out small and get a few fruits and a few seeds, we have genetics that were created right here on this land. So hopefully those seeds, those seedlings that we create from our own plants will be even better for this area, this climate. I would say for the most part, I am pretty much close to being done with bringing in new propagation materials for pawpaws. If I bring 1 or 2 or 3 genetics in every year, every other year, that's fine. I'm just tacking it on to, you know, rootstock or whatever and grafting. That's fine. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time and money doing that when I know eventually, because of their habit of suckering and because of those suckers being so vigorous once they do that, to me that is kind of a sign of you having a level of success with pawpaws. Because sometimes you put them in the ground, they will just linger for a few years and then they will die. Or in some cases we have some that are probably 15 or 20 years old that just linger and they still don't do anything. You wait for that first or second sucker to come out, and then that little 2-foot tree or 3-foot tree or 4-foot tree is so much smaller than a 2-year-old sucker that just shoots up, 6 foot, 10 foot in 2 years. It's kind of amazing to see that. And we'll talk about mulberries, which you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing about. We had our first grafting successes, this season. Oh, we had a lot of failures on that last attempt to root and graft. Too hot, too droughty something, too late in the year. And we're almost done with getting the genetics we need for those. We have plenty beforehand, but now and maybe in the next year or two, we should have everything that we could ever want in terms of mulberries. Unless there's some kind of unicorn out there that you just can't easily get a hold of. As far as loquats, like this Christmas loquat here. I had so many failures with the grafts and only like 3 grafts took. I've sort of not downside. I've sort of lowered my expectations, and the more I read about them, a lot of people say many of them have the same sort of flavors, the same sort of, that I don't know how much to believe about, dozens or hundreds of cultivars of loquats when you have sort of, 5 or 6 different flavor profiles, maybe 10. And then everything else, you hear on Reddit or read on Reddit and all the message boards and groups, size can be a factor. You may want a big old giant loquat, but thinning them will make the smaller loquats bigger. And I guess there are some that are larger. There are white fleshed and yellow or orange flesh varieties. But I don't think I need that many anymore. I think I'm only going to try to get 2 or 3 more cultivars, whether I graft them or somebody else. And I'm going to be done with it. These are pretty big trees. They take up quite a bit of space unless you prune the heck out of them. In terms of avocados, like that guy there, versus loquats, with the right amount and selection of cultivars of these cold hardy avocados, if you have success with them, you can have a pretty long season. And there obviously are like early, mid, and late season loquats too, but I don't quite get as excited about loquats as I do about avocados, and maybe it's because they've just had a reputation for so long of being impossible to grow this far north. And with the bacterial root rot and the fungal infections and the diseases, plus, possibly not super cold hardy during those first 2 or 3 or 4 years, that, and you see that they're finicky even about transplanting. I put 4 in the ground, and possibly, I should say, I put 4 in the ground that are dying potentially. The others, they look somewhere between okay and good, maybe 1 or 2 looking great. But then again, we haven't went through our first winter yet. We haven't went through our first hurricane yet. So here we are again on the Battle of the Wheat Bears, and today, like I promised, we have Shock Top, Belgian White, and this is my last Blue Moon, and I wanted to correct a statement I made when I sort of reviewed this the other day, a couple weeks ago or whenever. This is an unfiltered beer. You can see right there is a little bit of that settlings. But when I originally reviewed it, I didn't see any settlings. Maybe it was because it had been transported in the car, moved around or something, or maybe they're just in that individual bottle. It just did not have the settlings in there. So these are all white beers or unfiltered wheat beers. And this has, I think, lemon, lime, coriander, a shock top, and this guy here was kind of creamy, kind of sweet. Although every time I taste a beer, there can be different levels of bitterness, even under the same batch. Your palate changes probably from, depending on what you've eaten in the day, and probably a variety of reasons why it can seem like one beer is not bitter at all. You drink 2 or 3, they're not bitter. Go back the next day, drink 1 or 2 or 3, and they're all bitter. You can see this guy's a little bit bigger. The Blue Moon, what is it, 11.2? I can't remember. A little bit smaller. Shark Top is a full 12-ounce bottle. Got a really cool design. These guys, I think, are similarly priced, but this was on sale for $5.99 for a 6-pack at ABC. And I find this quite a bit at BOGO at Winn-Dixie, but they only seem to have one in stock, so you can't go get. Why would you advertise something like that and not be able to have 2 of these guys, or 4 or 6 for people to buy? Why do you put out one 6-pack when you're fixing to put out a flyer with BOGOs for it? It does not make any sense at all. Alright, I think it's time to crack the top. Bon appetit. I can actually taste some of that metallic flavor from this bottle cap here. That is very strange, almost like a rusty flavor, just by putting my mouth over that. And this, I got it straight from the store. Didn't sit out in the rain or in the humidity or anything. I would say that's not the coolest or best tasting thing in the world. To me, that's not very sweet either compared to that. One of the questions I guess I had after trying the Hoegaarden is what makes that Hoegaarden aftertaste, what makes it taste so different. And it's obviously not the unfiltered process, because this does not have that flavor either. And I kind of said Blue Moon might be a good beer to try if you're sort of like into Busch and stuff like that, and may want something maybe a little bit sweeter and a little bit more creamier. This right here, though, this is, to me, this is closer to Busch than that. And what am I getting in that? Man, I just can't get over that metallic taste. I'm assuming it's from that bottle cap. So I would say that Shark Top has a little bit more pungency to it as far as like that beer taste. And it is 5.2% alcohol, whereas the Blue Moon is 5.4. I'm probably going to get some flack for saying this, but this sort of tastes like the bottom of a Busch bottle. And, I guess that sort of makes sense because it's unfiltered and it has the sediment and it's cloudy, not pretty. Like, I guess the whole idea of these unfiltered beers were that somewhere in the 1900s, the cloudy beers, hazy beers, unfiltered white beers, whatever you want to call them, were just not as pretty, which to me that's stupid. You could pour a glass of this into a clear bottle and it's cloudy, might be some sediment, and you could pour the new filtered beers and there's nothing, it's clear, maybe an amber color or something, and people just, for whatever reason, thought that would be better. Maybe in some cases I would agree with them, but not all. I like the Hoegaarden, I like the Blue Moon. Did the Stella Artois last time, which isn't a wheat beer, but it's a Belgian-style beer. And people were saying that's the beer for people that do not like beers. Well, this is the opposite. This is probably the beer for people that like the taste of beer and they maybe want it a little bit more in your face. But I'm not necessarily getting Belgian style. I don't know. How do you judge or review a beer based on it tasting like beer or not so beer or different, and different can be good or bad, like the Hoegaarden. In my personal opinion, so far, I'll rate that number 1. I'll say the Blue Moon's number 2, the Stella Artois number 3, and the Shark Top is at the bottom, number 4. Right now, I'm pretty much getting close to the end with this little mini series here of Belgian style ales, beers, wheat beers, citrus wheat beers, and of course the Stella Artois Belgian style non-wheat beer. Probably only going to have maybe 2 more episodes where we're going to put this against a flavored one, maybe mango, maybe blueberry, and then possibly something from like Germany or something, and see how they compare. I think that they're supposed to be a little bit more bitter, and I'm not sure if we're going to go to a hazy, but we'll see. But that doesn't mean our beer journey is ending, and ultimately, how do you find a beer for somebody that doesn't like beer in general? I don't find a lot of enjoyment just out of drinking beer. To me, beer is a social thing, and I'm not out, socializing and drinking. I'm just testing things to experiment, to see if I can find something that I would actually enjoy and want to buy again and again and again, and keep my refrigerator stocked. Our next journey will probably be a little Mexican lager journey, and maybe we will find something that we enjoy. If we don't find something in the Belgian style wheat beer by the end of this series. There, guys. Cheers. And just a little update. I forgot to mention that we did the Sam Adams Summer Ale, and I would probably rate that about the same as the Shock Top. So probably tied at number 4 there.